the transfer news, what actually happened, and the official receipts. Alright, strap in. Juan Ayuso, the 23-year-old Spanish guy who has been nudging at the gates of Grand Tour greatness ever since he exploded onto the scene in 2022, has now signed a 5-year deal with Lidl-Trek. Not a 2-year we'll see flirter, not a let's test the waters contract. Nope, a proper commitment through to 2030. The announcement wasn't a whisper, it was a press release on Trek's site and a cascade of headlines across Cycling News, Velo, Cycling Weekly and the usual Peloton commentaries. See the official team announcement. Lidl-Trek's story page runs Ayuso's quote, "I can't wait to wear the Lidl-Trek jersey. Change always brings new energy and ambitions." And GM Luca Jarellasilen's line about him being one of the brightest young talents. If you want the gossip garnish, Ayuso didn't quietly finish his term at UAE. There was a major hiccup. UAE announced the early exit during the Vuelta, allegedly due to differences in vision. Ayuso publicly blasted the timing, calling parts of the process dictatorial and complaining about the unilateral nature of UAE's announcement, words captured by Reuters and broadly reported. Translation, there was friction, the team and rider disagreed on direction, and the split got messy enough to be audible on Eurosport. Ayuso's own reaction to UAE's timing, calling it a, quote, dictatorship that tried to harm his image. It was splashed in the press. So this move isn't the calm shuffle of jerseys at the transfer window, it's a cinematic rearrangement with fallout and flared nostrils. Now, this is professional cycling, where people don't just change teams, they move with budgets, buyout clauses and headlines. Reports in specialist outlets and translations from Italian and Spanish pages suggest huge numbers have been whispered about. Some outlets reported eye-watering figures per season and penalties involved in the contract break, figures that, if true, make Ayuso one of the highest paid cyclists in the peloton. Reporters are talking about 7-figure deals per year. A few sources have floated sums around of multiple millions per season and penalties in the double-digit millions to unwind long contracts. Take the usual grain of salt. These numbers are often half confirmed, half leak, and full gossip. So what do we have? An explosive exit from UAE, an equally dramatic early commit to Lidl-Trek, public scolding of the old employer's methods, and a 5-year handshake that says Ayuso will be camp painting as Lidl-Trek's man for the next half-decade. Put simply, not small potatoes, a seismic shift, a transfer that smells like ambition, money, and inevitable tactical rewiring across the sport. What did Ayuso move? Why did he move? Drama, friction, and what he actually said. Here's the human version of the corporate memo. Juan Ayuso left because he disagreed with how UAE wanted him to sculpt his career. UAE's official position was that there were, quote, differences in alignment with the team's sporting philosophy. Bureaucratic language for we're not on the same page, buddy. Ayuso's response was less bureaucratic and more tweet-ready. It was sharper. He accused UAE of being dictatorial and criticised the timing of the announcement, saying that it damaged his image and wasn't his decision to publicise then. Reuters quoted his comment, which were unusually frank for a sport that typically buries grievances in press releases and polite silences. This was not a graceful handshake, it was a public sulk, broadcast during the high-exposure Vuelta. Why rush away? Look at the timeline and the football analogue. When a rider is talented enough to threaten the top echelons of Grand Tours, being second fiddle or sharing leadership with a megastar can be career-risking. Ayuso had shown GC promise and stage prowess, he wants to lead. UAE has Tadej Pogačar, who remains the franchise player, and you can only jockey behind or alongside for so long before you start to want to have your own ship. The quote differences in vision phrase is code for they didn't want to give me the keys to the Ferrari. Ayuso's move is a power play. He's choosing a team that will send to him. Lidl-Trek's press release literally says they're bringing him in as a long-term GC leader in development. That's not subtle recruitment, that is seduction. There's also environment. Young riders don't thrive in tight competitive leadership duels within one squad forever. We've seen disruptions like this before. Personalities, ambitions, and team hierarchies clash, and someone moves to avoid a slow burn. Ayuso's tweet profile changes, his agent shopping, and the subsequent friction made the move inevitable. Sportively, he wants the stage. Economically, the sums are attractive. Politically, it gives him room to build his own team identity, away from having to wear a jersey that tells him he's, quote, second menu item. The move to a well-funded Lidl-Trek is therefore as much about an escape political heat as it is about chasing trophies and euros. How Lidl-Trek will weaponize Ayuso, tactics, race calendars, and support structures. Now let's get to the delicious tactical part. What does Lidl-Trek do with Juan Ayuso once he rocks up to the team HQ? The answer is both ambitious and ruthless. They build absolutely everything around him. Lidl-Trek has been buying top talent and creating a roster that can serve a Grand Tour project. They want a GC leader with climbing legs and TT chops. Ayuso checks those boxes. The team's official line is explicit. This signing, quote, strengthens Lidl-Trek's stage racing ambitions and is a key step forward in the team's long-term goal of becoming the best squad in the World Tour, per their press release, which is corporate speak for buy chickens that lay yellow jerseys. Concretely, accept the following. Okay, so a dedicated mountain train. Lidl-Trek will recruit or reassign climbers, rollers and domestiques to form a super support bubble. Think of riders whose calendar and training are fully synchronized with Ayuso's peaks. High altitude camps, recon rides on must-win climbs, and race peps, where's paced to build a crew that peels off attacks and buries rivals. The point is to have men who can handle the high, cold efforts and then do the hateful work of the flanks. Lidl-Trek has the resources to offer big money domestique. TT investment. Ayuso isn't a one-trick climber. He's improved in the TT. Lidl-Trek will invest in time trial hardware and atmospherics, wind tunnel sessions, bespoke TT bikes, and staff dedicated to peeling small seconds from his position. If their PR says Ayuso is already a great climber and time trialist, expect them to hone that into GC dominance. That PR, yes, it's on Trek's site. Calendar control. Lidl-Trek will program his season to target peaking windows, likely the Giro or Tour, or both. Tirreno and other stage races as building blocks. They will shield him from one-day exposure unless it fits the plan. They will ensure he has clear leadership. No split leadership with another GC captain. That's the whole point of the 5-year deal. PR and sponsorship. A big signing like Ayuso drives sponsors, more budget, better marginal gains. Lidl-Trek can pour more into tech, nutrition and logistics to keep Ayuso fresher. Expect a different, quote, machine around him than what he had at UAE, where Pogačar was the brand. Ayuso will get brand energy, race slots and VIP logistics designed to keep him at his best. What do you guys think about this? Comment down below your opinions and leave a like on today's video for good luck. Don't forget to also subscribe to my channel if this is your first time here to stay up to date with all of the latest cycling news and drama.